Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are viewing from in the world. Welcome to the Silent Forgotten. I'm your host Chris, and today I'll be sharing with you the life story of and visiting the final resting place of the Canadian Mississauga Ojibway Olympic Indigenous Athlete and professional marathon runner Fred Simpson Sr, better known as the Ojibway Thunderbolt or Fred Simpson Sr. March 10th, 1878 to May 19th, 1945. Fred Simpson Sr. was a professional marathon runner and Olympic Canadian Indigenous athlete. Known by the nickname the Ojibway Thunderbolt, he was also known as Fred Simpson Sr. He was an Alderville, Mississauga Ojibway. He was born on the Alderville Indian Reservation in Alderville, Ontario, Canada, near Cobourg, Ontario, Canada, on March 10th, 1878, or December 19th, 1878. Other sources have his date of birth listed as just March 1878. He was born one of 8 children as Frederick Simpson to Frederick James Simpson, 1834 to 1884, and his wife Mary Ann Mitchell Simpson, 1850 to 1884. His siblings included John James Simpson, who was born in 1867, Olive Simpson, who was born in 1871, Albert Simpson, who was born in 1872, Joseph T. Simpson, who was born in 1873, Alfred Simpson, who was born in 1875, Archibald Archie Simpson, who was born in 1875, and Arthur Simpson, who was born in 1880. He was raised in the Wesleyan Methodist Church in Alderville, Ontario, Canada, while also learning the traditions of the people such as the gathering of wild rice, fishing, and hunting. By 1891, he had lost both his parents, and he was then raised by his maternal grandparents. In adulthood, he stood 5'11" and 145 pounds, but was lanky, lithe, and strong, possessing great strength and stamina. That stature would lead him to become one of the best runners in Canada. Around 1899, he moved to the Hiawatha Indian Reserve on the north shore of Rice Lake. During 1906, he started long-distance running, participating in the 10-mile Peterborough Examiner road races of Peterborough, Ontario, Canada. His third-place finish caught the eye of Dick Back, who was the coach of the local Peterborough YMCA Harrier track team, who then began to work with the young runner. In the autumn of 1907, he finished in second place in the premier Hamilton Herald road race of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. This then put him in the limelight. Over the next 8 months, he improved to the point where he was considered a legitimate hopeful to qualify on the Canadian Olympic Marathon team, which would compete at the 1908 Olympics in London, England. At the Canadian Olympic Finals, he secured his place on the team. The Olympic Marathon was run on July 24th, 1908 from Windsor Castle to Shepherd's Bush in East London, England. Along with Tom Longboat, the Six Nations Onondaga, and Louis Tuwina, the American Hopi, it is the only Olympic marathon in which 3 North American Indians have lined up at the start. Both he and Tom Longboat are also immortalized in a 16mm filming of the start of the race at Windsor Castle, the first Olympic Games to be filmed. After a grueling 26-mile trek, he placed 6th for Canada, outdistancing Tom Longboat and Louis Tuwina, as well as 55 others of the world's best distant runners. He finished the race in 3 hours, 4 minutes, and 28 seconds. After the race in London, England, he would again finish second in the Hamilton Herald road race in 1908. Following that race, he then turned professional to race on circuits that would take him to such locations as Savannah, Georgia, Chicago, Illinois, New York City, New York, Newark, New Jersey, Buffalo, New York, Fort William, Ontario, Montreal, Quebec, and Toronto, Ontario in 1909. Unfortunately, he never won a medal, but he continued to race professionally through the 1911 and the 1912 racing seasons, then retired to his home on the Hiawatha Indian Reserve in Hiawatha, Ontario, Canada, where he continued to raise his family and farm. In 1923, he he moved back to the Alderville Indian Reserve in Alderville, Ontario, Canada, where he lived the rest of his life as a fishing and hunting guide. He passed away at his residence on Coburg Road from a coronary embolism while tending to his chip yard, splitting some kindling on May 19, 1945, at the age of 67 in Alderville, Ontario, Canada. Following his death, he was buried under a simple cross in Alderville Reserve Cemetery in Alderville, Ontario, Canada. He was married to Susan Evelyn Muskrat Simpson, 1884 to 1946, in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada, on June 5, 1901. The couple had 9 children, within 18 years together, including John Dolmage Simpson, 1901 to 1988, Lucy Lavina Simpson, 1904 to 1973, Frederick Harold Simpson III, 1907 to 1959, Olive Marguerite Simpson, 1910 to 1940, Daniel Alton Simpson, 1916 to 1972, and Lauren Simpson, 1919 to 1982. His wife Susan passed away on August 30th, 1946, at the age of 62, and she is also buried in Alderville Reserve Cemetery in Alderville, Ontario, Canada. His daughter Olive Marguerite, who passed away in Akron, Ohio on March 13th, 1940, at the age of 30, also lies buried in the Alderville Reserve Cemetery in Alderville, Ontario, Canada. In 2011, a more fitting proper stone commemorating his life and his accomplishments as a long-distance runner was placed on the grave, and the epitaph reads, Fred Simpson Sr., Anishinaabe or Mississauga, long-distance runner, born in Alderville in 1878, a descendant of Pushgizig of the Bay of Quinte Mississaugas, began his running career with the Peterborough YMCA Harriers in 1906, placed second in the 1907 Hamilton Herald Road Race, and 6th for Canada out of 55 runners in the London Olympic Marathon, July 24th, 1908, defeating the Onondaga Tom Longboat and the Hopi Louis Tuinina. Simpson turned professional in February 1909 and raced throughout Ontario in the American Eastern Seaboard, retiring by 1912. He is buried on this site with his wife Susan Muskrat and daughter Olive. For his contributions to sports, he was inducted into the Peterborough District Sports Hall of Fame in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada, posthumously in 1988, and posthumously in the Coburg and District Sports Hall of Fame in Coburg, Ontario, Canada in 2020. Hey guys, welcome back to the Sign Forgotten. I'm Chris. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we are at the Alderville Reserve Cemetery, or the Alderville Cemetery, in Alderville, Northumberland County, Ontario, Canada. And this is a native cemetery, or an indigenous cemetery, so we will be as respectful as we can. I will just show you a little bit of the cemetery grounds up here. It's blustery, and I just have to read from my notes, so please bear with me. Today we will be visiting the grave site of a gentleman by the name of Frederick Simpson, also known as Fred Simpson. Now, he was an Indigenous or Native Canadian Olympic athlete and professional marathon runner. Now, he was born about March 1878. The exact date is not known. And he passed away on May 19th, 1945. So, I was going to give you some history of the cemetery, but there's really nothing online that I found. But what I did find was that the cemetery was founded by the Mississaugas of the Ojibway Nation and established a Wesleyan Methodist mission in 1826. The chapel which was built in 1837, was replaced by the present church in 1870. Now, that is at a different location, but the cemetery itself was established on an unknown date. So what I will do is I will do some more research, and I will do a separate video tour of the cemetery another day when I have more information. So, but the cemetery is still open today for burials. So what we'll do, just let me, my notes here. We'll get back to the cemetery tour a little bit, and then I will tell you a bit more about Fred Simpson in just a minute. As you can see, there's lots of veterans here too, and there is a monument in the village of Alderville that lists all the veterans who served from this native area. So it is a beautiful cemetery. It's out in the country area. So here we have a monument to, in memory of those we served, lest we forget. So I'll just take you a little bit around the cemetery. There's not really a lot of graves here. Well, there is, but they're all placed in different areas. So I'll take you over to this one. This is pretty neat. This looks like a more recent burial, so we won't show the name. There's a beautiful statue right there. Bench you could sit on. As you can hear the wind, it's pretty blustery. Take you up to the hill here. There's a few graves on up on the hill. And then when we get up there, I will read you more about Fred Simpson. As you can see, neat little picture of a young man down there. Hear the chimes in the background. As you can see, it's a very beautiful cemetery. Over this way, up the hill, and I will tell you more about Fred Simpson here once the breeze calms down a little bit. Neat little grave over there. Grave of Robert D. Gray. Looks like he was a musician. Robert D. Gray, November 27th, 1976 to September 26th, 2017. We'll go up here. So I think what I'll do is I'll just show you a quick tour. I'll go find the gravesite of Fred Simpson, and then I'll just read it from there. It'll be easier for me instead of the paper blowing all the time. Some neat little monument statues over here. We have a lion and another angel. Neat little graves over there. Marsden, Lags, Crow, which is a pretty common native name. A couple of crows over here. Here's a neat little grave up here I will show you. This is the grave of Brad Charlton Crow, 1969 to 2014. There's Brad's picture. Beautiful carving. Memorial bench. Some people come into our lives and quickly go. Some stay for a while and leave footprints on our hearts. So there's some more neat little graves there. crow. Go down this way. As you can see, it's a beautiful view. Look at that. A lot of area for more burials. As I said, we're in Alderville, Ontario. It's Alderville, Northumberland County, Ontario, Canada. We are pretty close to Cobourg, Ontario, Canada. So I will go down here, show you a couple of graves down here. There's a columbarium. And then I will read my paper to you. And there's a house across the street, so we will get this done as quick as possible, you know, just to be respectful. This is a native burial ground cemetery. Don't want to get into any trouble. But I want to bring to you the story of Fred Simpson, Olympic athlete and professional marathon runner. Marsden. There are a few other people buried here. One's a Reverend William Case. He was a famous priest with the Indians. And there's a John Sunday, I'll bring you this one too. There's a beautiful one. Haley Holmes. December 31st, 2001 to June 1st, 2016. Amazing grace, your chains are gone. There's Haley Holmes. Back of the monument. There's the columbarium. I don't want to get too close. I don't want my picture in there. Or my shadow. Couple there. I'll start at the middle of this section. And we will walk over to the final resting place of Fred Simpson. Famous Olympic athlete. Professional marathon runner. So here are some more veterans in here. I'll just start here. It's getting pretty windy. So there's a few smokes too. Their name. So it goes all the way over there, as I showed you. Canadian Army, Private N.C. Marsden. Thank you for your service. There's another Simpson, Albert Simpson. A few more stones over there, but I will give you that on the next tour. I'll just walk over here. As I said, there's a Reverend William Case in here and a John Sunday who did a lot for native rights. Fight for the Indian rights with the white man. And I'll tell you more about them another time. So I know Fred Simpson is over here. See that white one over there, the big white one I think is Reverend William Case. Put him on my... lone one over there in the grass. So, back to my notes here. So, Frederick Simpson, better known as Fred Simpson, born March 1878, but it said the exact date is unknown. He died May 19th, 1945 at about the age of 67. And there's a car here, so I'll go over here and I will just get my notes out to read it to you, and I will just hold the stick, the gimbal here. This is the back of his stone, Fred Simpson. Now he was buried originally after his death under a wooden cross, but he got this proper monument installed in 2011. So come over here and I will read you So, Fred Simpson was known as the Ojibway Thunderbolt. Now, he was born in Alderville in March 1878 to James and Mary Simpson. By 1891, he had lost both his parents and was raised by his maternal grandmother. In adulthood, he stood 5'11" and 145 pounds, possessing great strength and stamina. That stature would lead him to become one of the best runners in Canada. Around 1899, he moved to the Hiawatha Reserve on the north shore of the Rice Lake and married Susan Muskrat. During 1906, when he started long distance running, participating in the 10-mile Peterborough Examiner road race. His third place finish caught the eye of Dick Baker, coach of the YMC Harrier track team, who began to work with the young runner. In the autumn of 1907, he finished second in the premier Hamilton Herald road race, and this put him in the limelight. Over the next 8 months, he improved to the point where he was considered a legitimate hopeful to run on the Canadian team, which would compete at the 1908 Olympics that took place in London, England. At the Canadian Olympic finals, he secured his place on the team. The Olympic marathon was run on July 24th, 1908 from Windsor Castle to Shepherd's Bush in East London, England. Only 14 to 32 runners were able to finish that race. He finished 6th place in a time of 3.4.28. After London, England, he would again finish second in the 1908 Hamilton Herald road race. In 1909, he turned more professional to race on a circuit that would take him to Savannah, Georgia, Chicago, Illinois, New York City, New York, Newark, New Jersey, Buffalo, New York, Fort William, Ontario, which is now Thunder Bay, Ontario, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and Toronto, Ontario, Canada. After the 1911 to 1912 racing season was complete, he retired to Hiawatha to continue raising his family with his wife, Susan Muskrat. In 1923, he moved to the Alderville Reserve Nation in Alderville in Northumberland County, Ontario, Canada. He continued to raise his family with his wife Susan until his death. He passed away on May 19th, 1945 at about the age of 67 and was buried under a simple wooden cross at the Alderville Reserve Cemetery, or the Alderville Cemetery, in Alderville, Northumberland County, Ontario, Canada. In 2011, a more fitting stone was placed at his grave, commemorating his life and his feats as a long-distance runner. Now, that is a lot of him, but I will tell you a bit more about him in the bio section. But for now, I will show you his grave, and I will read what it says. So, Fred Simpson Sr, 1878 to 1945, Anishinaabe, or Mississauga long-distance runner, born in Alderville in 1878, a descendant of Pashki of the Bay of Quinte Mississaugas, began his running career with the Peterborough YMCA Harriers in 1906, placed second in the 1907 Hamilton Herald Road Race, which I believe is Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and 6th for Canada. Out of 55 runners in the London Olympic Marathon, July 24th, 1908, defeating the Onondaga Tom Longboat and the Carlisle Hobie Louis Tuwinina. Simpson turned professional in February 1909 and raced throughout Ontario and the American Eastern Seaboard, retiring by 1912. He is buried on this site with his wife Susan Muskrat and their daughter Olive. So, thank you, Fred Simpson Sr, for what you did for the natives or the indigenous sports and everything else that you did. May you rest in peace, and thank you again. So guys, that concludes this video, but I'll show you first. I'll show you a little bit more up here. So if you like this type of content, please like, subscribe, and hit that thumbs up button. So take care, stay safe, and we will see you on the next video adventure. Thank you so much. Bye for now.